Black Forest Labs just released Flux 2, a powerful image generator that allows you to build highly aesthetic images and combine up to 10 references to build out new images. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a test I've run to see exactly where Flux 2 excels and which specific models do the best at specific applications. I'm going to show you how it compares to Nano Banana Pro and where you might rather choose to use Nano Banana Pro over one of these Flux models. So if we hop in here, the real crux of this is that we now have multi-image composition and it's gotten a massive upgrade. Whereas previously you could use 2, 3, maybe 4 images as reference points to build out a new image. Now you can do it with up to 10, but there are some caveats. So looking at Flux 2, the TLDR is that you can now use your own photos as building blocks to create fully cinematic scenes. So in context, you can combine actors, objects, and environments, and Flux 2.0 will blend everything into a single cohesive shot. No masking, no Photoshop layers, unless you need to make some fixes, but it's vastly improved on what we're used to in terms of the Flux models. So we have 3 new models in Flux 2, and they are all built for maximum control. So Flux 2 means fast generations with an acceleration option. This is also a much cheaper model compared to the other 2 I'm going to walk through now. Second is Flux 2 Pro. So you get balanced quality and speed, and you can handle up to 9 images. And generally the quality is much better than Flux 2. Then you get Flux 2 Flex, which is much higher consistency even than Pro. And it can take up to 10 images with the most detailed blending. But again, I'll walk you through exactly what that looks like in terms of a test and how it compares to the likes of Nano Banana Pro. So what's new in Flux 2.0? You can build scenes from multiple images. Flux 2.0 and Flux 2 Flex can take up to 10 reference photos at once. Try to say Flux 2 Flex quickly 10 times. So this means you can drop actors, props, set pieces, and background plates and describe them all in one shot. So this is what it looks like in action. So this is directly from the Black Forest Labs website, and I've run the same test for myself to see if it replicates the same output. So you start by generating assets. In this case, it's a camera and a world building scene. Step 2 is you combine and compose. So you take the image of the camera, the world building scene, and a logo, and then recreate this camera in this new style. Then step 3 is to stylize and perfect. So this is where you're adding that neon glow. And this is a pretty cool output. It's one of the many ways that you can combine different images to create and reimagine a different product, a different scene, depending on what it is you're building with these tools. So how to use Flux 2.0 in Flora. This is my chosen intelligent canvas where I build out all of my creative work for my one-person studio. So what it looks like in Flora is you can drop all your assets onto the canvas. You can connect them into a single image block. You can also generate images from scratch if you don't have reference images. And then you can choose to stylize. You can swap out backgrounds, and basically Flux 2 handles most of all of this. And I'm going to show you now exactly what that looks like in terms of quality and what happens when you start combining multiple images together. So how does Flux 2 perform? With specific context, if we look at portrait photography, it was decent, but as you can see, some of these outputs aren't great. This one has incredibly green eyes to the point where it becomes a little bit creepy. But in this case, the clear winner for me was Flux 2 Pro. And generally the aesthetics of these are pretty good. They kind of rival other top image generators like Nano Banana and Seedream. But the prompt adherence wasn't as good as it could have been, particularly with the likes of Flux Kontext Max, which was a little surprising, given that is a model that I use very often and it's one of my go-to image models. For character development, again, pretty good results all around. Flux 2 Flex was my favorite here in terms of realism and composition. World building, all 4 of these were interesting. So just for context, I'm testing these 3 new models as well as Flux Kontext Max because it is the most powerful and most expensive version currently. And speaking of cost, this is what each generation looks like in terms of credits through Flora. So usually the more expensive the model, the better the output, but it's not always the case. Then we have interiors and architecture. Again, some mixed results here. Flux 2 Pro didn't really hit the aesthetic and the realism that I was looking for. And the clear winner here in my mind was Flux 2 Flex in terms of prompt adherence and the look and feel of the image. Fashion and editorial, all with pretty interesting outputs, some not quite adhering to the prompt as well as I'd have liked it to. But again, Flux 2 Flex seems to be the winner in this regard. Then e-commerce products, again, all did a decent job with a fairly basic prompt. And Flux 2 Flex, again, came out on top. Then macro shots, took the shot of a fly's eye, and a common pattern showing up here is that Flux 2 Flex seems to produce the best images, best prompt adherence, and aesthetically very interesting. So now looking at multi-image references. So this is where you're taking different images and combining it into one. For this example, I took the example that I went through earlier on the Flux website to see if I can reproduce it. And I used the exact same prompts and had to adjust it a couple of times because it wasn't producing the results I was looking for. But this end result I was pretty happy with. It took me 2 or 3 generations to get to this. And given I was only using 3 reference images, I was pretty impressed with this. It did as it said it would. But then I tried multiple references, 10. So I looked at an e-commerce product. I took this diffuser and dropped in 9 different essential oil bottles, which kind of comes with this product, and then gave it a prompt to kind of create a showcase image of the diffuser sitting on a table surrounded by the essential oils. And as you can see, Flux 2 Flex struggled here. I noticed that the moment I started adding more than 5 images, sometimes it got it completely wrong. Other times it kind of got it. And in this case, you can see it's got the scale wrong. It's made one much bigger. If you look at the details and the text, it's completely off. So this will no doubt improve over the next couple of weeks. But if you compare it to Nano Banana Pro with the exact same prompt, same reference images, it's a much more impressive and clear result. And with Nano Banana Pro, you can scale or you can choose up to 4K generations, which makes a massive difference in this sense. So Flux 2 Flex seems to work very well with a handful of images, say less than 5. But the moment I went over that, it seemed to struggle. So that's something to keep in mind. So the final verdict here is that Flux 2.0 offers great prompt adherence and style aesthetics. You get multi-image references work well with 5 or less images, but struggles with 5+. Flux 2 Flex is the most impressive model and rivals the quality and flexibility of Flux Kontext Max. So my recommendation is to combine different image models. When you're building out a particular image, use Nano Banana Pro, use Flux Kontext Max, and in this case, I would recommend adding Flux 2 Flex to your arsenal. Especially given the aesthetics that it produces. And if you're combining multiple images, it can also be useful. So looking specifically at the image test that I ran within Flora, I used multiple different categories of images to see what types of aesthetics Flux would produce. So looking at Flux 2, Flux 2 Pro and Flux 2 Flex, as well as adding Flux Kontext Max for reference. This is all within Flora. If you'd like to give this a try yourself, you can clone this exact workflow and try Flora for yourself. If you choose to use it and pay for it, you get 25% off with my creative partner link. So as you can see, there's mixed results in all of these. And I was pleasantly surprised at how decent most of these were. There were very few that were completely off in terms of prompt adherence. Looking over at world building and character development, again, pretty solid results. Some not quite hitting the mark, but for the most part, it's solid. Then world building, interesting results, nice aesthetics in some of these, and some definitely more eye-catching than others in terms of the end result. Then looking at architecture and interiors, all four of these models producing reasonably good results, some much better than others. And again, Flux 2 Flex seems to be coming out on top in terms of the quality of the end output. Then we have fashion and editorial. So looking at the details of the composition, the skin texture, the lighting, the backgrounds, all holding up fairly well. And again, Flux 2 Flex seeming like the winner. Then we have e-commerce products, building these products from scratch. Fairly similar results here, not much to report in terms of differences or a clear winner. Then game development, again, different scenes, building out different assets for games. All of these models hold up pretty well. And finally, looking at macro shots, so specific details and adhering to a prompt that is very specific and maybe goes into more detail with reflections and whatnot. Again, Flux 2 Flex, for me, clear winner here. From there, I chose my favorite images and dropped them down below to then recreate in a new ratio, 16:9 ratio, and then adding animation through Kling. Specifically, I'm using Kling 2.1 Master in this case, just as a way for us to test how we can transform our images into videos. And generally, I think Kling 2.1 is a great option, much cheaper than the likes of VO3 and Sora 2, and produces pretty good results comparatively. So feel free to make this your own if you want to copy this and either use the existing prompts or tweak them to create something for yourself using Flux 2. Then looking at the image, the multi-reference images. So firstly, generating the images and then pulling them together into a new node. So that's as simple as creating a new node from one of the images, selecting image, and then coming down to the Flux models. So here you can see you have Flux 2, 16 credits, Flux 2 Flex, 80 credits, Flux 2 Pro, 40 credits, and Flux Kontext Max, 90 credits. Usually, the more expensive the model, the better the result on average, but it's not always the case. And so I'm not completely surprised to see that Flux 2 Flex is the most expensive new model, given that it seems to be producing the best results. But we'll choose that, and then you can click and drag as many as 10 images for this specific model. And then hit output and see what it produces. If it doesn't quite meet what you had in mind, rerun it, tweak the prompt, try again. So in this case, it held up pretty well, but as mentioned, dropping in up to 10 images, it struggled. So I hope this gives you a good introduction to Flux 2, what it can be used for, and how you can start using it to build your own one-person creative studio. If you want to stay up to date with everything going in the world of AI creativity and learn how to build your own one-person studio, head to escapism.ai to sign up for my free newsletter. And if you'd like to clone this workflow and give Flora a try for yourself, you can click my creative partner link in the description and get 25% off. Thank you for watching.